My name is Garen, like is Curry. I am the senior spectator operator for all of our esports for our LCS. So during the broadcast, I am the main observer for everything that you see on screen during game. We have a main observer and a secondary observer. The main observer is more like a director of the show when you're in game, and then there's a second observer who is actually looking at the other points of action that could happen. So when you watch the two of us control camera, we're constantly communicating anything from where people are moving, if someone's about to clear a ward, where ganks are going to be set up, or where pressure might be applied because they have less vision.
Reggie's porting to
Dip up.
Dip up.
We're going to see Reggie rotating down because he could get there with this was a fatal to me, but he didn't rotate down. So
Someone's coming. Pit down.
Pit down.
I'll switch.
Takes the teamfight advantage, lets the middle free.
Okay, we're good. It's a lot of little tiny things that you have to micromanage to be able to keep it all in frame. So for the Caitlyn ultimate specifically, I knew that X Special was starting to walk up towards him. It looked like he was trying to get vision and maybe harass him a little bit. And Wild Turtle right at that moment had stepped to the side to try and get an angle where he could do it. And I just knew right at that point when he finally got vision, he was going to start casting it. And that's when I just followed it all the way to the base. And that's exactly when it killed him.
Oh, oh God, no! The base from downtown! Wild Turtle from the half-court line right there.
All right, welcome back again, everybody. This time I'm joined by Daydreamin from Team Coast. Congratulations on your last win. And you guys really need a lot more of these wins looking towards the playoffs. Are you guys doing anything special?
I think there's just something weird with our team where like we'll be in this weird slump, and then as soon as there's like a fire under our butts, we'll just kick it in gear and just like go really hard. And I think the wins will start rolling in.
Is there anything special that you do when you are faced with something this important like playoffs coming up?
We still, I mean, like before, even when we were losing, we were still training just as hard. And right now it's just like there's just a little more sense of urgency, and we're just kind of just training harder and harder.
Okay, so with this specific game going up against CLG, it looked like you guys had a very pick-oriented comp where you're trying to catch people out. Was that tailored for CLG because they're known for split pushing?
Our comp wasn't really tailored for CLG, more as
Or would it just CLG guys look for that dual lane matchup? Do you try and arrange it so you're going at double lift?
I mean, that game we kind of knew they were going to 2v1, so we didn't really like look for it because we knew we could. We had a plan for the 2v1. So I mean, it's not really like a plan thing. We know certain duos are weaker than others, and then maybe we'll try and like go for the 2v2. But it just all depends on like what champion picks we have and whatnot.
Huh. So what is your next game coming up, and how are you guys prepping specifically for that game?
Actually, we had a little bit of confusion. We thought we were playing Dignitas, so we prepared a lot for Dignitas. And then now we come in, we're like, okay, we're playing Velocity. So, I mean, we still prepared for them too, though. So, we're pretty confident.
All right. Well, thank you for the interview, Daydreamin'. Congratulations again on your guys' win. And we do have plenty more games coming up for you guys. To get them started off, we're going to send it back over to Jat and Freak at the desk.
Thanks very much, Kobe, and thanks, Daydreamin' as well. Congrats again to Team Coast for the win, but it's time for our next match, Vulcan versus Velocity Esports. Now, last time these guys met was back in Week 6, and honestly, Velocity outpicked and outfought Vulcan. It was a really good showing by them, but ManCloud and crew have learned from their mistakes and are eager to get their revenge.
The biggest thing we learned from playing Velocity a couple weeks ago was that you always need to respect your opponent.
It's going to be a lot harder game. They won't be surprised by us playing well, where last time they thought they could just bash on the team that had low morale.
I think we can still take them. It's just we got to make sure we pick ban well again and keep our eye on the prize, you know, to win the game.
And like ManCloud said, Vulcan won't underestimate Velocity again. And, you know, I bet they won't let them have Shen TF either.
Yeah, that was the big thing that Vulcan mentioned after they lost to Velocity here. And Velocity has picked up a couple wins this season when teams have underestimated them, since they are that last place team in the LCS. And Vulcan wasn't thinking about their composition when they played Velocity last. They not only gave up the champions they most liked picking, they picked a very strange composition, almost over-tested against a team that was actually ready for it.
And so, of course, Velocity is going to hope that they can make that another win now here today against Vulcan, because Maple Street and team, they're going to be eliminated from the playoffs if they don't start to match some wins and at least match Dig or Curse in wins this week.
Yeah, and Velocity, let's be clear, they're 5 games out of 6th place, and they pretty much need to win out to make it into even the 6th spot to make the playoffs. So with all that, they have to make their run with their old top laner, Chris, returning to the position in place of Virose, because Virose stepped down from the team on Tuesday. We'll see if Chris returning to the roster can give them a new spark as they try to make a run.
And they certainly have the opportunity to right here, because even though Vulcan and Velocity have really different playoff prospects, as far as recent history is concerned, they've had very similar struggles.
Yeah, they've both lost 3 of 4. Velocity's actually performed amazingly well in the early game, but then they lose really badly in the mid-game teamfights. Then Vulcan actually has looked kind of like they're on autopilot these last couple of weeks. They've let Cloud9 and COG mount huge comebacks on them, and there was the game against Velocity where they just seemed to be sleeping.
Yeah, so let's see if they can kind of wake up for this match and get their wins back on the table and you know, clutch their second place. So let's check out the starting lineups, guys. On the blue side, it is Team Vulcan. Psycho Sid in the top lane, Xmithy in jungle, ManCloud in the mid lane, Zuna the AD carry, and Bloodwater on support.
And in the red corner, it's Velocity Esports with Chris returning to the top lane, NK Inc in the jungle, Echo, that mid lane, mid-season addition in mid, and NK Inc in the jungle with Chris in top. That was mixed around on me a little bit.
You started reading and then read back. So Evaniscus and Maple Street.
Evaniscus is the support.
Yes, Maple Street, the AD carry. We got it, guys. Don't worry. We read right to left sometimes, but we're good. Anyway,
I'm reading too much manga, I think.
We're in Japan right now. Before we get into the game, let's first check out who you think's going to win this match. According to LOLesports.com, 82% think that Vulcan's going to get the upper hand in this match.
It's a big percentage.
It is.
It's actually kind of funny because Vulcan was doing so well when none of the teams, when they were never getting the vote. And then we had the feature like, Vulcan, nobody believes in us. And then everybody believes in them. And it's almost a curse when teams vote Vulcan to win the game because they haven't been performing well ever since they started getting the fan vote.
And CLG got the fan vote last time and we saw how it worked out for him. So you never know. Some teams out, thinking of it actually, at the very beginning of the split, Cloud9 said they're going to go 0-28.
Yeah.
And then they won a game, like, okay, we're going to go 1-27. And that actually, I feel like that helped keep them humble. They weren't kind of riding their own hype train, and they stayed very confident, or sorry, very consistent. And actually, their first loss was after their 5-0 week, where they're like, oh yeah, we're really, really good, and they actually slacked off that week. And so the teams that realize we've still got a lot to fight for tend to sort of keep up.
And I feel like when Vulcan gets back their mentality of no one really believing in them is when they're really going to start getting their stride back. Because this is a team that they've picked up a swagger, but they need their own internal swagger. Like, it's almost as soon as people give them credit, they're almost losing their motivation. It's been like, yeah, we are really good. We don't need to be able to do anything. Yeah, we're the best. We just got to go do our thing. But what they really need to drive them is people not believing them and the constant need to prove themselves.
Yeah, and of course, speaking of swagger, Zuna, I think, just is like the most, like, if he wins, like, that dude is just like...
He didn't do his mohawk today, though.
Yeah, it's kind of down, but like...
And he shaved as well. I thought he looked the coolest with his mohawk up with the beard. That was his most intimidating point.
Now he's like a lot friendlier looking.
Yeah, he's way too friendly right now.
Might play Kog'Maw, a little cute doggy, and, you know, it won't be as scary.
He always leans down really close to the screen as well. It's like, I almost feel like double lift. He needs to get the double lift classes so he can see the team fights a little better.
You know, it's actually interesting. Someone actually drew all the LCS players, all the starting lines for all the teams, and then someone made like a fixed version, and he just moved Zuna down a little bit to the top half of his head. Because anytime you look at the player monitor, you kind of see this because he's leaned forward and the camera's up there. So you know that's kind of the trademark Zuna. You see the top half. There you go. See?
Yeah. Unless he's screaming. That guy is loud. By the way, he's the hype. He brings the hype for Vulcan, and they need it in this game.
It's a really good thing to have. I love having that sort of in-game leader, like the Coast chant at the beginning of their games, Zuna yelling anytime there's a team fight. It's really useful for these guys. Dignitas has it too. They make jokes when they're in downtime between games and whatnot. Keeping spirit up, I think, is really important for these guys.
Yes.
And then we're going to see if they can keep their spirit up this time. Unfortunately, no spirit rush for Velocity with Ari being banned out.
No, they're not able to get that one. That's a targeted ban at Echo.
Yes.
Because Vulcan doesn't want him roaming around. The roles are reversed a little bit here, where ManCloud would not be able to get Twisted Fate. It's actually the most banned champion against them is Twisted Fate, because if you're ranking like the feared TF players in North America, it would probably go Link and then ManCloud.
He's certainly a guy you don't want to give the cards to. So Elise dropped as well. Thresh banned out. I think these are bans you're not really surprised by so much. The one thing it does point out to me, though, is NK Inc.'s Evelyn that he used to get their comeback against Curse is still open. Yeah.
And did you know?
Did I know?
And we're mentioning Link had 14 bans against him in 20 games. The one just under that for like most banned champion is NK Inc.'s Eve. It's been banned 12 times.
All right, and this one's actually coming through. So the Shen comes in,
They better pick it if it's been banned that much.
It tends to happen. So Psycho Sid, though, he's grabbed the Shen for the first pick, opens up a lot of opportunities for these guys. We've seen it work well for Zion Spartan. It's been popular overall. I think he's probably one of the top picks overall. I would say at least top 10 for NA. I would be surprised if he weren't.
And I love the Shen here being picked first, even though there was a lot available. Actually expect, if Velocity wanted to be really cute, they would have taken Sona away, because that's the most picked Vulcan champion. The second most picked Vulcan champion is Thresh, so it actually would have put Bloodwater like totally off kilter. But they showed no intention of doing so, and Velocity's just doing their thing.
Yeah, Velocity hard to engage. They're not even going even. Unless it's like top lane. Chris has run top lane Jarvan. So theoretically, this could be this interesting, like, weird pseudo-tell where they're actually lying to you. And this actually is so far 2 parts of the 5 of CLG's lineup last game.
Yeah.
Hard engage.
You know how they say, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it?
Yeah.
But for Velocity, it is broke, so they're not doing the things they've been doing previously. I like this, how they're mixing things up.
Yeah, hoping to fix it right here. And of course, Vulcan, though, they're looking for another late game carry for Zuna. He's on Vayne. Tristana wasn't banned, but he still goes for the Vayne right here. And shockingly, the Sona for Bloodwater.
Yeah, that's a new thing and a not so new thing. Zuna's definitely not played very much Vayne, specifically when everything else is up. I think he picked it so he can tumble out of the Jarvan Cataclysm if they ever try to lock him down, but it's still very vulnerable against that Orianna. So it's a bold pick, actually, by Zuna.
It is, especially with a lot, sort of available here in the lineups. Of course, Velocity now get to make their own choices. I don't think that's a Nivea, Echo. You're a good Nivea player, but I don't think we're going to see, like, support Orianna.
Probably
so I feel like he's lying with this one. But the... interesting lane, though. So we've got the Varus coming through, the more hardcore engage. All these guys can start fights.
I like the strat from Velocity. They are trying something new here. I could be wrong, but I don't think Evaniscus has played Leona all year. There's actually not been too much, as far as I can tell. Yeah, very little Jarvan play this year as well from NK Inc. Everyone diving in. I mean, I don't think we'll see the Jarvan Leona lane, that a lot of people like for the kill lane, only because we have Maple Street on Varus, but you never know. Maybe that's mid lane Varus.
It is a rock-solid composition every once in a while, but...
It was Goose.
It was Goose? I thought it was Goose. But
Yeah.
Dig used it, though, once in Kiev. Not Kiev. Yeah, Kiev. They ran it once
You're
against
absolutely
SK.
right. The history lesson we have earlier, capping that one off.
Bringing it back. Anyway, guys, the Evelyn actually taken away more or less. That's going to go to Smithy here to round out the lineup here. And I do love Evelyn Shen as a lineup, though, because you have such good, like, flanking power.
It appears in the back line.
Yeah.
And the best early game, actually, that Vulcan has had all year was with Smithy on Eve. That was the game that they lost against Cloud9 after jumping out to an 11-kill-to-1 lead. Something Vulcan is definitely very comfortable with. And as teams talk about Vulcan, they do say that it's like their early game that is their weakness and they want to get to late game. But honestly, I feel like Vulcan, when they play early game, that's how they play. Like they have to win the mid game even to get there. And this is a composition that'll do that for them.
So here we go. The full lineup for Vulcan is here, and it looks pretty promising. So Velocity needs their last pick. Is it jungler? Is it top lane? So you don't necessarily... I mean, it's very likely to be jungler. It's certainly the more likely proposition, but they take the next 18 seconds.
Maybe a Riven? Chris used to be a very prolific Riven player.
Yeah.
And he could try to lane it against Shen. It'd be a lot of... Shen has a lot of access to armor that he could pick up, but if it's not the top lane Jarvan, I really wonder what he's got left.
Well, 5 seconds to go. Kennan's going to come in, so he will follow up with the team, hard engaging. Okay, you're going to be stunned up. Here comes Slicing Maelstrom. So Chris going for Kennen, and I think it's a good matchup against Shen, even directly.
I really like Velocity's team comp overall. I think they have a little bit of vulnerability to getting flanked because Leona is an all-in support, and that doesn't leave much protection for Maple Street. But the rest of their team should be able to start very good fights if they're able to get a bit of a lead.
So Velocity looking for some 5-on-5s, certainly looking for some wins to get themselves back up in here. And as you mentioned, sort of these teams have done a pretty good job, I think, on both sides with champ select. So Vulcan not outthinking themselves this time. Velocity still hoping they're maybe underestimated here, feeling confident, hoping to get some wins in here. It's a possibility, of course.
And both teams are mixing something old with something new. We see Maple Street on Varus, which is something he's had some very good games on in the past, but then the Leona is completely out of the blue. And then Vulcan has Zuna on Vayne, which is not something we're used to. And then the rest of their picks seem normal.
It's an interesting pick for him because knowing Zuna's personality, I'm surprised he doesn't play more of that champion. Just think it back to the playoffs when he picked Kog'Maw into Shen Nocturne. And he had said specifically that, like, yeah, we know we're fighting Shen Nocturne. He said, I can outplay them. I can be an unsafe AD carry against a dive comp and survive. Trust me, I can do this. And he's like, and the line I just like latch onto is, I can outplay them.
Yeah.
And picking Vayne, I feel like she has one of the highest sort of
outplay
rooms,
potential.
Exactly, one of the highest outplay potential. And Zuna running around like dodging the Jarvan knockup, dodging a shockwave, dodging Kennen knocking him back with the condemn. I feel like there's a lot of room for him to make some good moves.
I totally agree. I mean, that's why everyone talks about hashtag Vayne mechanics every time they get a good play. I once had a 1-in-7 game on Vayne.
That's good.
I won, so Vayne mechanics.
She's lightweight. She can be carried.
Yeah.
It's good.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So here we go, guys. Corki a little bit harder. Actually, no, he flies. He's really easy to carry. Just kidding. Corki's easy to carry. Guys, we are into the game, though. Vulcan on the blue side in the bottom left corner in the flying V formation. Velocity on the top right-hand side in red. More of a straight line here. So good for aerodynamics. Maple Street leading the charge here. These guys are going to make their way across the map, try to spot things out, but Smithy will see Maple Street without getting spotted. Vulcan have a little bit more knowledge.
And Eve is actually a little better on this patch than the previous one, thanks to the changes to oracles that were made in 3.9. The overall vision detection radius of oracles went down, which actually, it shrunk to being smaller than Eve's vision detection radius, so essentially oracles doesn't help you at all against Eve.
Wow. So let's see if Smith, I was going to say NK because I'm so expecting it to be him. Smithy can actually sneak through later on in this game and get some flanks on. There's already some interesting early moves, though. Look at Vulcan's top lane and jungle. They've actually ran into the Tri-Brush, looking to do a little bit something crafty around the enemy red buff, potentially.
And we saw some creativeness last game from COG as well. But Velocity, they should be in a mode to take risks right now because they've already taken risks with their picks. But they are not looking like they're taking risks here at level 1.
They're being very, very defensive. Yeah, you're right. They're just, they have crowd control, they have good brush checking, they have really good sort of bursty pokiness. Like, I feel like that should be successful for them, but they are playing the defense here. They're lurking around their own red buff. That should be pretty safe for them. And here we go. Vulcan making a late move, though. They're the team actually taking risks, despite being the team that's sort of favored here. So they're going in for the blue buff. They put a ward down. Maybe they're just waiting. No, just a ward down. Just a 2v2 matchup.
Not much that happened level 1. I think they found their lanes, and we will get to see what is most likely the extended laning phase, because there is no differently manned lanes. Evaniscus Maple Street going straight up against Bloodwater Zuna. This will be decided early, actually. If Bloodwater can outpoke Evaniscus and get him lower than he needs to be to engage, Vulcan will win this lane hands down. But if Evaniscus can get level 2 and jump onto Bloodwater before he gets poked down, that lane could just swing to Velocity right away.
And the push there from Vulcan prevents any counterattack right now from Velocity. Early on, a pink ward was put down by Evaniscus to try to take control of that lane. Problem is now they've kind of lost control of that brush. Xmithie's level 3. He will have the ability to make some moves in here. And I want to see where he ends up going with this one. Although, sorry, I'm so used to the 2v1s where the jungler hits 3 and ganks a lane. He doesn't have to do that.
The junglers have a lot more freedom when the lanes are completely even, because no one is forcing you to really be anywhere. Especially since both teams also warded deep into each other's jungles.
Yeah.
There's always that fear that you're just wasting time if you go for a gank.
So let's see who can farm out better than, or get some kind of crazy engage happening. Certainly, he's waiting around with the Leona lane for a hard engage here onto Vayne's Sona. I don't know if Velocity's going to make this one work, but that's the initial look here for NK Inc. waiting in the shadows.
This gank needs a lot of good things to happen for it to work out. Even though they have the pink ward in the brush for Vulcan, Velocity needs to make that wave go pretty deep past into Vulcan in order to get the initiation. And then even then, Evaniscus has to land his E on Leona just to start the fight. There is a lot of invested time here for Velocity. So if this works out, NK Inc. is putting himself substantially behind Xmithie, who has been farming this entire time.
Exactly. Look at that. It's 19-6 in minion kills right now. Now, they did see Xmithie walk past his red buff. The word's timed out now, but they did see Xmithie go towards Wraith Camp. So they knew he was far away for a time, and there's NK Inc. He turns around and realizes the gank hasn't happened, and you called it lost farming time. No gank happened here for Velocity.
Vulcan read that very well. I'd say Bloodwater and Zuna have handled that lane amazingly. Interestingly enough, Bloodwater actually leads the league in assists on support, so we made a big deal last season about him being that shot calling support. He's also amazing in game. Chris is in trouble though, because that was a great sneak by Xmithie.
And look at that, Chris uses the electrical surge, and Xmithie waits. He's like, I'll wait for you to come back down, but NK Inc. is looking for a counter gank.
There is a level advantage here. NK Inc. is 3 versus Eve's 4, but the counter gank advantage is on NK.
There's a knock up onto 1, and a lot of damage onto Chris, but Xmithie forced to run back as well. NK Inc. actually looks like the better fight here. Went for Velocity. More Q damage coming across, and Vulcan getting a worse part of that one.
But since no one died and the laners themselves are very even in health, I feel like this is something Psycho Sid's going to be able to withstand. The Dorn Shield is kind of the de facto defensive item for them to pick up in that lane now, and as long as Psycho Sid can survive NK's lane presence, he's going to be absolutely fine.
And now look at the bottom lane, though, because Maple Street and Evaniscus have found a little bit of an opening. They've zoned Vulcan out of their own lane, forcing these guys to go for the double golems. So they'll get some golden XP, but the early game little scariness with Leona not being level 2 has passed, and it looks like Velocity are doing a little bit better job down here.
Yeah, I think Velocity still holds the presence in that lane and will for a while. Just Sona doesn't really reach a point where you're not worried about getting blown up by a Leona Varus combo. A lot of this is going to have to be about sitting far enough back that if they go on Zuna, they're going to die, or just waiting for Xmithie to come down like this and baiting a gank out. But because of the position of the lane, Evaniscus can't safely Zenith Blade onto anyone because he would draw tower aggro.
And look at that pink ward. It spots Xmithie. They had pinged the one in the river. Like, hey, there's a pink ward there. Don't go that way. But this ward by Evaniscus lets him know, oh, just don't be too aggressive. We're fine.
Velocity started with a lot of pink wards to specifically deal with Eve. And it's working at least now in the early game, which is the big reason Xmithie hasn't pulled off that many ganks, because he knows that a lot of the things have been pink ward in the first place. It's going to come back to hurt Velocity in the long run if they can't make anything happen based off all those pink wards. Just because they're spending more on wards since they have to go pink.
And Smithy, actually, sorry, Psycho Sid taking a bit of damage in the top lane as well. This matchup actually has remained very close. So Chris coming new into the lineup. Well, I say new. He was benched. He came back on here, still holding up against Psycho Sid, who's doing a pretty good job of that one. So, you know, honestly, this is okay here. Their new top laner's holding up. Their bottom lane is winning. Their mid lane's holding too.
The benefit that Velocity has subbing in Chris so quickly into their starting lineup is it's not like it's a mechanical downgrade from VUL. The big reason Velocity had VUL in the top lane is because they really wanted his overall team communication. VUL made a lot of calls for them. Chris is a good mechanical top laner.
Yes.
He's just very quiet. So at least in the lane, we know he can perform.
And it's NK Inc. And actually, let me stop that for a second because Psycho Sid's going to get jumped on right here. Can he dodge any of the knockups? Good talk comes in, but still stunned up. Oh, NK Inc.'s not going to go for the knockup. Forces the flash away from Psycho Sid, though.
Yeah, Psycho Sid was able to flash before the ultimate stunned him, and that's one of the big reasons he got away from that gank with so much health. ManCloud was going to try to kill Echo pretty soon here. As soon as ManCloud gets his energy back, he might go for a kill combo.
Right as Echo burned his Q, couldn't shield himself. Can he get it in time? Ooh, just not enough damage dealt right there. The cloth armor by Echo helping him survive. And I want to get to the point about the shot calling, though. It's actually NK Inc. and Evganiscus who became the new shot callers. Chris, forced out. He's going to survive. So it's the support and jungler now who've taken over calling duties for these guys.
That's actually a fairly common thing amongst NA LCS, or just pro teams in general, is having... I've always preferred to have a jungler and support kind of share duties. A lot of teams like jungler and mid, since they're the ones who are roaming around the map the most, but it's really a preference thing. Anything can work.
Okay, so here we go, the bottom lane. We keep tabs on it, and a 13 minion kill lead has now grown for Velocity Esports. They're actually tied in gold, so the gold has come in from other sources here, but the bottom lane are holding up, so that 2-on-2 still working out for these guys. A lot of money spent on pink wards, to be fair, but he's still got the same ruby crystal that Bloodwater does, so Evanisca's still holding up.
And Velocity knows how to play the early game. It's the strangest thing about them. It's just this whole season, it's the mid-game where they're kind of falling apart. And in this game, they are loaded with mid-game power. Kennen in mid-game dragon fights, Varus, Leona, ultimate chains. There's just so much AoE crowd control if they can ever get a dragon fight properly going. It's just a matter that Velocity hasn't been able to pull that off even when they pick mid-game compositions.
It's true.
Another chance is opening up for them in this game because they're even in the early game with a strong mid-game team comp. They just got to be able to perform.
So now I've got a question, though, what Vulcan and specifically Psycho Sid does about this, though, because, you know, if you want to really fight for Dragon, you mentioned the Kennen as part of that one. Chris has to leave that top lane. Psycho Sid gets to sit there, you stand united, and show up late. I feel like that's difficult for Velocity to deal with.
Yeah, he has the ability to dictate this game, and that's potentially why Vulcan picked him first. Vulcan loves having that added amount of map control, and when we look at the way Psycho Sid and Vulcan plays, Psycho Sid always farms a lot in lanes and then is extremely powerful in team fights. He actually has the best KDA of all top laners in the LCS.
And Zuna's going to get jumped on right here. Burns the stand united for that. That could be really nice for Velocity. Chris actually letting Psycho Sid get down to the lane, so Chris has free roam right here for the 3v3 down here.
If Vulcan doesn't make something of this, it's going to give Chris a big edge in that lane.
But Echo getting jumped on right there, pulls the shockwave, and there's the first blood pulled up by Mandatory Cloud. Good death, Mark.
Yeah, they just decided to jump right on him there, and this should give Vulcan a dragon if they want to take it. But surprisingly, Psycho Sid has decided to go all the way back to base and go defend this top lane, even after they could have had a 5v3 forced at the Dragon Pit. Vulcan seems content just taking down these turrets and pressuring NK off the Dragon.
And Smithy in a battle with NK Inc. Inc just going to run away from that one. Smithy not choosing to go down for the ward, just trying to hurt the enemy jungler. So it's the defense for the top turret, as you mentioned there, Psycho Sid. And look at the way he's building. It's the new thing for Shen, especially when you fight, I guess, an AP top laner. Going for the early Spirit Visage, you can see the Kindle Gem and the Negatron cloak there. So had the Kindle Gem done when he first ulted, so a little bit lower cooldown, but still a ways to go until the global is back up.
I'm going to be able to track the Shen ultimate cooldown this game, Freak. I'm not going to miss it again. I know it's on a lower cooldown. And it's giving Vulcan this sense of security. Really, even though Velocity's picked these aggressive champions, they have yet to go aggressive. And now, if they try to turn, X-Smithy's going to be there. That's why they're just running away.
Cristiano did not quite hit on anyone. Now Zuna's going to get jumped on, but here comes X-Smithy. This could be a really good turnaround for Vulcan. Maple Street dropped low on health, pops the barrier to survive it. Good survival right there. Of course, a lot of ults burned on both sides. Whew. Nothing quite happening as far as kills are concerned.
Yeah, that was a lot of trading, and Echo again in trouble to ManCloud. He's dead.
Good flash. Good flash right there. ManCloud gets the kill. 2-0 now in the mid lane. Mandatory Cloud, the kill leader in the North American LCS. He is #1 in champion kills, showing it again right here, 2-0. And now is when they say, yep, we've got control. We'll take Dragon.
If ManCloud gets going, Vulcan usually dominates, and this Dragon fight could have some huge implications on the game, or lack thereof, because Evaniscus had no ultimate, and NK would have been going in just with the support, and that basically would have been suicide. All of that was created because of ManCloud's effective domination over Echo's Orianna in mid.
And not to mention the fact that, unlike the CLG game, it's not Thresh there as support. You can't jump in there, go for the smite, and get pulled back out.
No.
That would have been a very scary engage to go in for Jarvan right there. So, Vulcan trying to catch up for the rest of their members. Sid held up in his lane. Mandatory Cloud winning his. Zuna trying to actually get some farm. He's down 86 to 104. We always like Vayne as his late game well-scaling carry, but has had a rough time in his lane so far.
And NK is trying to go up to stop Sid. I think he's just gonna farm out and push him back. Like usual, actually, for Velocity here, Maple Street will win his lane. And we have those stats about how Maple Street has ridiculous scores when Velocity wins, and then atrocious scores when Velocity loses. But he usually just does well in his lane. It's just a matter of when the game transitions. If the rest of his team is too far behind, everyone just jumps on Maple Street because he's the only real threat. And that could be a real danger for him in this game as well, because we already spoke about Leona being an all-in support and them not really having much peel or protection for Maple Street. I can just imagine now ManCloud and Sid and Xsmithy just all appearing on top of Maple Street and just destroying him before he can make an impact. So if I was Vulcan, I actually wouldn't be that worried about how much Maple Street is farming, because as long as your other lanes are doing fine, Vulcan's in good shape.
So I have a question this one then, because there's always the adage that a good offense, or a good defense, or wait, a good offense is the best defense.
I don't think that's it.
No? The best defense is a good offense. If
Yeah,
you kill them, they can't kill you. But ManCloud and Xsmithy wanting to kill up on Maple Street right here. Jump down on the turret. He just explodes. Evaniscus is going to do the same. Xsmithy, he's going to survive this one, and the turret likely to be picked up as well.
So we talked about that, and the Maple Street was going to die in that exact manner. But that was more than Vulcan needed to put into that. And Velocity's actually making a pretty good call here. If they can get this bottom lane turret and the mid lane turret, that gank would effectively backfire for Vulcan. I don't think they're going to be able to get them both, though.
There's definitely a lot of pressure there. Echo's not there in the mid lane anymore. NK and King Curse will succeed up here, so nice pickup. But look at this turret going down. ManCloud stealing the blue buff. This turret's under siege. No one's defending that either.
Good call. When Vulcan is winning, it's because they're decisive in the things they do, even if it seemed like a potentially questionable decision, sending all 5 people to tower dive Maple Street and Evaniscus. But because they got the double +2 turrets, they actually out-traded Velocity in kills and turrets.
And the dunk in on a Mandatory Cloud. He is alone. Shockwave used as well. 3 ultimates for a kill, but that might give the control of the mid lane they need.
All right, now it's on Velocity to just make this push happen. I don't think they have enough spells or ultimates to feel comfortable in that. And that just slightly evens the kill trading that they did, but not enough to effectively get them a comeback.
No, they are 2,000 gold behind, and that's without turrets being different. That is a dragon and champion kills, maybe a little bit of minions as well right here. Smithy grabbing his own red buff as well, certainly still in control of that part of the map. Even has a remnant of the blue buff, because why the heck not? Sid, though, he is holding on to the mid lane right now. So I just need to point out, actually, that the only turrets that have gone down are on the far sides of the map. You have really interesting lanes here now, where they're going to be in weird states.
What that actually means is the game is playing like there's only 1 turret down. Because if you only have 2 turrets down in a single lane, the reason you wouldn't go for a single lane down turret is because that lane's unsafe. Sure, the lane is slightly more unsafe if you're down 2 turrets, but it's effectively a very near to the same risk, which is why the game is still going to be a lot about the laning phase, and there's still going to be a lot of contention in that mid lane to see who can unlock the enemy team's jungle first.
See if they can do that right here, because pink wards are in here defensively for Velocity on their own blue buff, but that was taken not that long ago. You're seeing Smithy continue to scale up and try to take control as he stealths around the map as well, going towards what might be an Abyssal Scepter, has some early Magic Pen, has his early damage output there, and there really is a lot of assassination potential here for Vulcan where they can get into these jungle fights, they'll be in good shape.
Maple Street has got to be terrified.
Oh, yeah.
Even though, like, he's trying to farm in a lane with 2 down turrets with Eve on the enemy team. It's sure he's not in any immediate risk now, but he's got to feel like he is. This is so much mind share on Velocity, just not knowing where Vulcan's going to come assassinate them from next.
And that's going to be a huge risk. We talked about how easy he went down, and as soon as you said it, of course, did happen. And here we go. Let's see where the next moves are. Yeah, you look at him in the minimap. He is hiding very, very far back. But the initiative comes in onto Chris. A lot of damage coming across. Deathmark going to be there as well. Smithy takes him down as he pops. But there's a knock-up under the turret. Smithy forced to run away. Will survive. NK Inc. now alone. Double kill picked up. Smithy's Evelyn 4-0-1.
That was really smart play by Vulcan, and that's the mind share we were just talking about. Even though, obviously, our camera was correctly focused on the top lane because that's where the gank was coming from, Velocity had no idea that's where the gank was coming from.
But here's the engage on Azuna. Shockwave does not land thanks to Flash right here, but the re-engage comes across. Evanisca is going to go down. Now can Echo beat up Zuna? Barrier has been used.
Into the
Echo
turret.
lower and lower on health. Trades the kill, but 2 for 1 still.
And an extra turret in the top lane to boot for Vulcan. They are doing so much good right now. And Maple Street, as scared as he was, is able to go and get a turret.
Everyone left. He saw literally every champion was there on the map, and he's like, great, I'm going to push bottom lane. Finds himself a turret, makes it 3-4, which is good on them to keep that score close. But you're seeing time and again the kills are coming in for Vulcan. They're making these early mid-game moves, and that's what we said they needed. They've found that so far.
Xsmithy is fantastic on Eve, creating the right type of fear in the enemy in the mid-game. He knows where to maneuver himself around. Even that early gank he attempted on Chris where he made it into the brush and then got around behind him. Moves like that in the mid-game just become even more terrifying, where there's larger amounts of the map that require pink wards and more areas you can sneak through.
And here we go. The next move with the pink wards is towards the dragon area. Evaniscus puts one down, has the ruby sightstone, but the oracles is here for Bloodwater, so vision might just be important. The rest of Velocity, they're running down the mid lane. This turret, that's just going to be theirs. But Vulcan are nearby.
Yeah, Vulcan does not have the ultimates that they need up quite yet. They need a few more seconds, so it gave Velocity the window to take that one down. You can see Xsmithy's ult not quite up yet, Psycho Sid's waiting, and Crescendo. Those are all the things Vulcan needs to get a clean fight.
And they might not just get one unless they can wait another 30 seconds. Velocity's still grouped up, looking to start a little something. There's the oracles for Bloodwater sweeping out these wards and gets a lot of control over the dragon area. Now it's determined of where does Velocity go from here.
That oracles is so amazingly key. Even Bloodwater actually pink warding over the wall so he could clear that ward safely, giving amazing vision control for Vulcan to take this one out and securing them that dragon through wards alone.
And look at their spread. Mandatory Cloud and Psycho Sid stayed mid to keep the push from coming in for Velocity while the rest of the team safely took dragon. What a great move by Vulcan, keeping control right here. Velocity actually still forced to go power in numbers here, 4 of them going for the blue buff. Smithy, he gets it with a Q. His smite was down and he still stole it.
They must hate him right now.
Oh my gosh. I just got that.
Yeah. See, you're not used to it getting turned around on you like that.
With Kobe, I expected. With you, I was just like, wait, what? Oh, right.
I've been working on it since you've been gone.
Chat, you've done well, young Padawan. But to become a true Sith Master, you must kill the Master.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to become the Sith Master of puns.
It is a dark art. Mandatory Cloud, though, taking control of the whole Wolf camp. Zuna going to keep taking the farm in mid, and you're still seeing, I like pointing this out though, that Maple Street has stayed above Zuna. You said his scores were so good in games they won, and not the best in games they lost. He's certainly been getting a lot of that free lane farm, highest minion kills in his team, but the problem is they haven't found a good team fight yet.
I don't know if they need to find a good team fight because they're able to keep Velocity completely back and just grow this gold lead, especially when you're running the mid lane Zed. Most teams that are successful for that use him as a split pusher and flanker the entire game. In fact, most of Vulcan's composition is about flanking. Xsmithy and Psycho Sid are going to be flanking as well as ManCloud, so if you put up straightforward teamfight lines, it doesn't actually work that well.
And here comes the catch right there on Evaniscus. Flashes! Oh, amazing. Does not get solar flared. Echo forced to run. Good shotgun, but he still gets picked down. Smithy with another kill, and the chase on Evaniscus. Zuna's going to pick that one up as well. 2, 1, and 4 on Vayne. Rough lane doing well in fights, and ManCloud now putting pressure on the inhibitor turret.
And they didn't even need ManCloud there. Their most farmed, strongest member of the team. This is going great for Vulcan. They seem to be stepping it up since their last matchup against Velocity.
And the pressure's still on. Goes for NK Inc. The juggler is going to explode right there. And goes back to his shadow and says, great, I'm going to keep hitting this turret. Thank you very much. That's going to be, he is surrounded.
Yeah, he's probably going to die here. As shadowy as you can be, you're going to die if that happens to you.
Rainy days.
It was still a great play, though.
But here comes the possible yeah, Check yourself. I'll get more than you. Chris, though, still looking forward to Zuna. Can he get one more hit for the stun? One more hit. No, dodge there by Zuna. Runs left. Gets himself out. All right. 1 for 1. That turret has fallen. So the base is open here from Velocity.
Really good sequence of events there for Vulcan. Getting all the way back to the mid lane fight where Xmithy and Psycho Sid doubled up and flashed through the Leona ult to get everyone on Velocity in danger, to ManCloud's kill of NK Inc. to secure turrets. They got actually 2 turrets out of all that, and just even more advantages on the game.
So still scaling forward. Now, it's interesting because I want to kind of think back to when Vulcan played against Cloud9. Cloud9 had a really good set of team fights against them to pull that game back from a very large gold deficit, as Vulcan kind of stopped being able to dive in and kill the base. Yeah. And with Velocity having a 5-on-5 sort of team, I always want to keep that in the back of my mind. It certainly was difficult. When we saw Coast take down CLG, the 5v5 team fight never really worked, and Coast kept the game up. It's always a possibility, I suppose.
So it will be a test on how much Vulcan has learned since that game, and how much Vulcan recognizes that they are a flank-only team, not a brute force teamfight team, and whether or not Psycho Sid and Xmithy going from the front or from the side. And in this situation, since Velocity was positioned in the front and Vulcan had no flankers, they didn't even try to fight, which I think was the right call.
It seemed to be very, very good right here. Velocity have, I like that they've kept up in turrets despite losing in kills so hard. They've only been -1 really for most of this game, but Psycho Sid is knocking at that front door. These guys must react to that open inhibitor, which splits up that 5v5 team. This is a little scary for Velocity.
It's been scary for a while. They've only been able to pick up 3 kills on the whole, despite having so much team fight potential and everyone on their team being able to actually have a form of crowd control. That's how much they've been controlled by Vulcan's team comp.
Psycho Sid just fighting Chris right here, getting kind of the better of it. Burns his Ignite for it, actually, and says, all right, I'll go back in onto you. Looks like a lot of damage being dealt there. Chris forced to run back to his own base, which gives Psycho Sid attacks onto the inhibitor. Meanwhile, the rest of Velocity look forward to Maple Street. Can he get the ult? Yes, he can. Damage up with there. Flash comes across. Double stun there. And here comes the engage. Shockwave comes across. Can they get it up there? Knock him out of Smithy. Smithy does finally go down, but the counterattack is here. Can Zuna clean up? Looks for Maple Street. He's been exhausted. Damage goes on to Evaniscus. Has to be a little bit afraid of the ball. Goes on to Maple Street. Barrier used. Still not going down. Flashes in. Does not get caught by Evaniscus, but Psycho Sid not in a good shape. Can Chris pick up the kill? Yes, he does. 2 for 1, actually, advantage Velocity.
Yeah, and that was a straight-up fight that Vulcan tried to have with Velocity. Chris also got the upper hand on Psycho Sid when Psycho Sid tried to teleport back in. Everyone on Velocity got away with such low amounts of health. That was very close to being a disaster for Velocity, but it works out keeping them in the game.
And Vulcan looked to try to, even though they lost the fight, looked to try to take down that turret, but realized Jarvan a little bit too scary, had to back away from that one. And so now we get the game to reset. Chris pushing down the right-hand side lane, pushing down the bottom lane. Echo up in the top, trying to shove that out as well. The mid lane getting reset now. Velocity built a little bit of breathing room. They've got some time before Psycho Sid has ulti, but we've got a replay of that cannon kill.
Exactly. We need to be able to see here how Psycho Sid had already used all his spells on Chris to get him to go back in the base in the first place. So when Chris came back, he just had an edge. Not only did he get to start on while Psycho Sid was channeling Stand United, he was also able to just outbrawl him as he chased him down for an eventual kill.
Yeah, the double flash right there. Good to have the cooldowns back up. And we saw the end of that one, taking him down across the wall. But Vulcan, we've talked about them having map control the whole time around. That still happened here. The Dragon, there's again 26 minutes in. That is their 3rd so far in the game. But ManCloud, little bit. Okay, you guys, he's fine, but it was like, maybe he gets jumped on.
If Vulcan gets another fight before Maple Street's flash and barrier are up, I think that's where they take it. Because the only reason Maple Street was able to escape that fight is after ManCloud used Deathmark, he just flashed back. So ManCloud wasn't able to follow, but now ManCloud has a flash, so he could follow an extra little bit versus no flash from Maple Street. The danger level is very high for Velocity right now.
And speaking of danger as well, the lockdown team that's so dangerous from Velocity, there's double Quicksilver Sash here now for the Vulcan lineup. So even the stuns can be ignored by these guys, as well as a lot of the magic damage this team comp has. So I feel like Vulcan's making some really good moves mid-game. Evaniscus, though, he gets stunned up on the wall.
And this could be the flank fight they get. Look at Maple Street.
He's just gone right there, just explodes. Mandatory Cloud gets it. Chris comes in, Shotgun comes across. Zuna's going to QSS out of that one, but gets caught up there by NK Inc. Mandatory Cloud goes down to the turret. Zuna, likely as well, pops his barrier, turns back for some damage. A lot of kills picked up, though. Another 2 for 2. Smithy forced to run away. Really good hold onto the turret here. Velocity actually holding on to this game.
I don't think those QSSs are doing what Vulcan really wants them to do. Vulcan needs the damage for when they get the flanks to kill Velocity immediately. And even though they're getting out of a couple stuns, it's not getting them out from under the turret, and it's not killing Velocity for what they need. Those are not good fights Vulcan's just initiated themselves on. They got the flank right in that game, but then Velocity collapsed in just right, and all of their crowd control ended up catching Vulcan in the turrets. This is just got a lot more interesting, Freak.
It has, and especially when you consider a team was winning in kills, starts losing fights, all that shutdown gold floods back in for Velocity. Yes, they're down 7,000 gold, but I feel like that's been shrinking since before, and they're even getting control of their own jungle finally. NK Inc. leading the charge on a red buff. Maple Street, probably going to wear that at this point in time. 75 gold, nice, and the big red buff there. So, here we go, guys. The pink ward is down. Vulcan trying to take control over Baron Nashor. They've been taking control of the map, but unlike the Coast game, they've not been taking Baron and you know, stumbling ahead off of that.
And normally, I would say Vulcan is still in complete control here, but I wonder how much their recent failures are on their mind right now. Because last week they had that 12 or 13,000 gold advantage on CLG, couldn't push into the base.
Yeah.
A couple weeks before that, as you mentioned, they had that flank team against Cloud9 when they were up 11 kills to 1 in the early game, and they couldn't finish that one. And again here, they're having some trouble in these late game team fights, finding, I mean, they were kind of mid game team fights, but they're turning into late game team fights now, finding windows to take over the game. And I wonder if that's going to make them overly apprehensive and actually scare themselves into some poor decisions.
Well, it's certainly being a little scary for these guys. Bloodwater putting, they're still trying to get ward covers though. They're tunneling in a little bit on Baron right there, saying if we can't find the windows, maybe Linux will do it, and we'll just kill Baron. I don't even know what that was supposed to be referenced to.
No, you're just saying names of operating systems. It's like DOS. Yeah, that's a great pun.
Anyway, though, the split push, though, they've tunneled it on that. Psycho Sid is trying to take down the right-hand side lane, putting pressure on the inhibitor, saying, I can ult away, maybe. Chris, you're stuck here. Smithy getting a flank down as well. Smithy's wearing oracles to make sure that he can roam around and not get caught by wards as he flanks. You know, it's a cool move.
They need it.
Yeah.
Vulcan needs to fight people on Velocity that aren't grouped up as 5, because that's actually been backfiring on them a bit, and as they shrink the map more and more, it becomes more and more difficult for them to get those fights. Because Smithy's been walking around with that oracles, they should have very good area control, and it's going to keep people like Echo here in their turrets. It's just a matter of Vulcan finding a fight before Velocity can collapse in together.
And this should be a free turret right here for Vulcan. Turret number 7.
Hello.
Xmithy, though, finding Evaniscus, but he's a little outnumbered right now. The team comes back in, stun lands on Xmithy, and here the team comes back in, still chasing on to Evan. That's going to be a kill picked up for
That's
Zuna.
what they need.
Maple Street is alone. Crescendo comes across, and Zuna with a good flash tumbles out of the Cataclysm. Beautiful play, and now here comes Shen. This is not good for NK Inc. Stunned onto the wall. And Smithy trying to flash forward and find more. That's the kill picked up. Shotgun comes across, but Smithy is still alive. Beautiful fight for Vulcan. They got exactly what they wanted.
And that's the best way to wrap it up. Everything they've been working on in this game finally came together. All the skills in the skirmish working out for them. The crowd control got used early in that fight on Xmithy, and it allowed the rest of Vulcan to pile on.
And they're going to keep going forward now. Chris has been slowed by the Blade of the Ruin King. Mandatory Cloud leading the charge there. Zuna is going to get into range. The Zonya's used. No ultis, no escape here for Chris. Good kill picked up. Zuna is unstoppable now. 5-1-8 despite a rough lane, and Vulcan's got control of the map.
but they still haven't taken a big objective. That's where they are going now. NK is down for a little bit longer, and the major crowd control spells for Velocity are down for a bit. Once they secure this Baron, I feel like Vulcan will have the confidence to push into Velocity's base.
Velocity's trying to get in the range to steal, but I think it's incredibly unlikely here. Smithy's going to take that one down, gets the smite off, takes that one successfully. Psycho Sid spots Evaniscence gets an Echo and says, guys, they tried to stop us, but we're okay, don't worry.
Finally, I think Vulcan is over their fear right now.
Yeah.
I think once they get the Baron, they're kind of back in the game. They were doubting themselves after the 2 failed team fights. Now they got that, did you know, extra attack damage, agility power, health, and mana regeneration?
Yes.
You definitely did know that, but...
I did not. I'm surprised. I thought I just made you look cool.
You're lying right now.
I might
That's
be.
not nice.
I might be. Smithy, though, he's doing the wave clear. And you're right. It's Vulcan feeling a little bit more confident. They got that flank fight. They finally got it off of all that ward control they fought over, got the flank, got the Baron. They said, great, now we're shiny in purple. We're fabulous like Tarek. Let's try to close this out. There's not even a turret defending the bottom inhibitor.
And when you're shining in purple, you start tower diving.
Yeah.
Red side turrets. And I think that's what Vulcan can do, specifically because the bottom inhibitor is exposed, which will give Smithy and whoever else wants access into the base, which makes the other 2 turrets substantially more difficult to defend against, since all Vulcan wants to do is flank from the sides.
So let's see if they can defend themselves here. Velocity still doing whatever they can to sweep out wards and not get flanked out here. Smithy gets spotted. They know he's around there, so they got some information on this Vulcan flank attempt. But look at that, more wards getting swept out. The Smithy Oracle still paying off so well for these guys. Psycho Sid's putting the top lane. They're choking in on the base. They're getting ready for that next push.
And it looks like all those kills for Zuna as well have given him the damage, almost breaking point for Vayne, where he's able to kill absolutely anyone very quickly. Not only the Blade of Rune King and Phantom Dancer, but the Last Whisper. When Zuna went for the Quicksilver Sash, he delayed that a fair bit, but because they've gotten so many kills and they've picked up that Baron, he's now where he needs to be from a damage perspective.
And he's got a lot of safety as well. The Quicksilver Sash, of course, we mentioned. Bloodwater also rushed to McHale's Crucible. So there is so much anti-CC on this team. There's a lot, despite the fact that they never went for Runic Bulwark, they're still surviving the sort of magic damage area of effect team.
And that is one of the weaknesses of that Eve jungle, in a sense that you don't build the Runic Bulwark. I think Psycho Sid is slowly working on one if it ever gets to that point. But in an ideal world, Vulcan wins this game before that Runic Bulwark even gets completed.
And you're seeing them look for it right here. Baron buff still 1.5 minutes left, and they've got the inhibitor down to half HP. They've got to be a little bit aware of what kind of catch comes in, but they're splitting up. You notice that Zuna is not on top of anyone else. They can't area of effect these guys.
And this is a point where Vulcan actually can't flank, so if Velocity got a clean initiation, it would be their chance to hold them back. They just didn't see the window, and Vulcan was able to slowly take the inhibitor down.
And that window has shut here, and so Vulcan are still in control. They've got another minute on Baron. The split push from the top lane from Psycho Sid had kept Chris up there. The rest of the team got that push in the bottom lane, slowly, carefully making sure they didn't get caught out, and then look for the next opening here. 7 turrets down, a big gold lead, looking for the next move.
I'm actually really surprised that Vulcan isn't flanking from the side through that exposed inhibitor, but instead trying to go just brute force up the mid lane. That actually gives Velocity an opportunity to maybe find a cleaner fight. We'll see if they're able to keep getting through that, though.
Do you think they're afraid to tower dive? Like they're just like, oh god, if we tower dive, it might just fail?
I think they're afraid to tower dive. They're even more afraid, actually, of getting caught in the cannon ult, just based on the items they've built, like Mercurial Scimitar, QSS, and... Alright, Chris is dead.
Yeah, he's gonna Zhonya's. His flash is available, maybe?
No, it's just off cooldown.
But he does get away, and the CC lands. Psycho Sid dashing away Smithy, forced to Zhonya's. They burn a couple of cooldowns, but Vulcan gets control over the mid lane for it. This inhibitor might be theirs as well.
That was very close to what they needed if they can get this inhibitor down, but they're very low off this one, and Velocity going for a fight. Here's the turn.
Mancloud goes in, and NK Inc. The home guard is here from Ken, and they could join there. Beautiful shockwave onto 3. Here comes Chris. Does he find enough damage? Tries to get Zuna, but Zuna refuses to go down. Chris does not have Zhonya's. Gets an Orianna shield. That might be enough to keep him alive, and it is. No kills on either side so far, and Velocity forced Vulcan out of their base.
Nobody died in a crazy fight where they're just dumping spells on each other. Team fights aren't the best thing for Vulcan right now unless they can get that 1 or 2 members of Velocity down before it starts. They tried to get Chris, but the Zhonya's saved him from the death mark, and then his team is what came up to actually save him in the end. I think the turret going down is an overall win for Vulcan, but it is also encouraging for Velocity that they were able to hold that inhibitor, at least for now, through the Baron buff.
It definitely is. So Velocity, their 5v5s are still just barely working, but so the ideal world not here for Vulcan now because the Runic Bulwark did get finished. I mean, it's nice. It's like,
it's actually more ideal now. They just, you always want to win faster.
Well, sure.
Now it just means team fights are a little less painful. The Void Staffs haven't been completed by any of the Velocity mages so far, so that Runic Bulwark's aura of magic resist just becomes absurdly efficient as Vulcan is trapped into team fighting at this point in the game.
And they are, so here we go. Unless they kill Psycho Sid first, which seems like the wrong call. But
that is probably not the best thing.
The Spirit Visage Sunfire Cape Runic Bulwark Shen, I feel like he'd be hard to kill for this team. Maybe. Smithy, though, does steal away the blue buff. The other one did go to Mandatory Cloud, so a lot of pretty colors in these guys. The speed are actually out right now for Bloodwater, helping his team run around a little bit more. And they're looking for their next thing to collapse upon. The bottom inhibitors got to be respawning in the near-ish future here. But of course, in the next minute, both Baron and Dragon are up too.
Soon-ish.
Yeah.
Inhibitors are actually always the hardest thing for me to time. Baron and Dragon are very easy. They show up in chat. You're used to them. But you don't really think, 5 minutes ago we got that inhibitor for the Super Minions. When's it coming up? Hopefully pro teams are able to time that one. And the syncing is actually very bad for them as the inhibitor will come up, I think, right as the Super Minions are still pushing that. So they'll actually have to have a defender back there while Vulcan could be pressuring Baron.
And that's always a scare right there. So Velocity backs up against the wall here. 30 seconds until Vulcan potentially looks for the Baron grab. Of course, Chris doesn't know Smithy's waiting right in the corners. They're looking to maybe force the Zoniers or the ult out of him again like last time. You can see that was Chris vision. Did not know Evelyn was around there. Always is a scary thing to be looking out for here. And there we go. Vulcan about to crest their average game length. So Velocity putting up a good fight for these guys. But the jungle still being stolen away. Blue buff was taken last time. There's red buff taken now as well. But Velocity moving out of their base.
And this is going to leave their base very exposed. Vulcan, if they can flank around, might get this team fight. This is straightforward, though.
Here we go. Shen's going to land on top of that one, but they've got a big flank coming off. Chris goes in on a Bloodwater. Shockwave lands as well. Zuna goes down. Beautiful team fight, 2 for 1 so far. ManCloud forced to run away. Now on the back line, a beautiful taunt comes across. Psycho Sid gets one, but it's going to be Psycho Sid still alive, actually, and ManCloud rejoins the fight. Only Chris is alive. Vulcan actually wins that one.
There's that tanky Psycho Sid actually getting the triple kill, but now it's all about Chris's defense effort as Psycho Sid interrupts him.
Oh my gosh, and that lets ManCloud go in on the base. He's got super minions. Only one turret left alive. This could be it. I don't know if Chris can get away in time.
Psycho Sid is amazing at hide-and-go-seek, and I think ManCloud's going to end this game.
There we go. The last of the turrets has fallen, and the inhibitor came back. So Chris in a 1v2. Can he do the damage? Ignite is on. He does get it. Now Psycho Sid is alone for 15 seconds in the base.
And I don't think he has enough AD to take this down quickly. If Chris wouldn't have killed ManCloud, the game would have been over. I think this one's going to extend, though.
So a middle inhib will go down to minions. I take back, by the way, the Nexus turret did survive, just barely, because everything moved forward because it turned invincible. I thought it was dead.
Oh, really?
The second, it was up there shooting at like 12 health. Psycho Sid now tries to go for the kill on the inhibitor. He's probably going to get it with the minions, but might lose his life for this. The piercing arrow comes across, does not land. NK Inc. does not follow, but Evaniscus does. Yeah, he's out.
So remember when we were talking about those pesky inhibitor respawns being hard to track.
Yeah, hard to track.
A little inconvenient, I'd have to say, for ManCloud right there. They thought they'd had the game won, and maybe they have it locked up because they won so many things there where they won the fight. They got 2 inhibitors down. Psycho Sid didn't even die. And now because Velocity got so sucked back into their base, it is a Baron for Vulcan as well. So things are actually pretty controlled now.
Yes. Yeah, so this is Vulcan wearing a Baron buff. They've got 2 dead inhibitors on Velocity's side. There is only 1 turret alive, and that's the one defending the Nexus. Certainly, there's a lot of room to play here for Vulcan. They've got the Shen ult available, while Chris and Echo are stuck on the right-hand side of the map. There's certainly a big window for these guys.
And Velocity is actually trying to force a little bit earlier, but you're not trapping Zuna in no Cataclysm.
He goes back in, though, for Evaniscus. Gets slowed down. The flash shadow comes across. There comes the fight in. No Shadow Dash lands, but they get 1 kill picked up. Here comes the chase back on through. Flashes forward. Does not stun Maple Street on the wall. Just gets him to safety a little bit there. Condemns him to safety. And there comes Chris. Gets exhausted though. Shotgun comes across. Zuna still alive. Would you believe it? There comes the Zonias as well. But just a double kill for ManCloud. And getting forced to run. ManCloud still on him. Chris goes down. That's the ace there for Vulcan. 5-0. That's going to be the game.
And Zuna had finally hit critical mass with his Vayne build at the end there. Seemingly unkillable. The barrier kept him down. And even though Velocity tries, they made a run away, they get chased down, lose the game.
Well, a very close fought battle though, but the early game lead and the mid game pressure just seemed to be a little bit too much. Great play there by Vulcan. Definitely just controlling the whole way through. Couple of minor slip-ups, I would say. Couple a little bit risky team fights, but huge early game lead. Great openings by Smithy, and then control of the map.
I think overall, Vulcan played that game solidly. Their composition gave them the early game edge like they need, and at that point, it's just a matter of avoiding mistakes. And that's something teams can cut down on as they ramp up for playoffs, is just reducing your mistakes. The important thing is the ability to get the lead, and that's what Vulcan did very well that game.
And right there, Smithy, actually, Smithy held up the Vulcan sign right there. You saw the fingers come out there. I think I'm a fan of that one. Thank you very much.
Spelt differently, though, I think.
What? Yeah, it is. Thank you, Internet, for getting that one wrong most of the time. But there's a U in there, an extra U. And you saw Smithy and Psycho Sid. Those are the last two guys on your screen there. I think they were really big factors in that game. Did a lot for themselves.
Even that last fight with Psycho Sid, just getting the triple kill, the one who managed to take down the second inhibitor, also getting away from the fight. He just kind of does his thing. ManCloud gets all the accolades for this team, but Psycho Sid, with the top KDA of all the top laners, coming out huge this season and going fairly unrecognized.
So good job by him,
props.
of course. A lot of props right there. Fist bump there. If you want to watch the VOD, there's my fist. You can hit that one later. Now, guys, we've got to take a short break, but in return, Vulcan, Zuna, and Xmithy will join us to talk about getting that much-needed win. Plus, we've got the story of how the LCS helped make one fan's wish come true. The North American League of Legends Championship Series will be right back. Stick around.